The battle between Frieza and his enemies, the Saiyans, had seemed at its apex. The Emperor, in his elegant golden form, stared menacingly at his enemies. "You've done well to keep up in my golden form, Saiyans, but I'm afraid this is where your luck runs out." The Saiyans simply stepped back at him, and Vegeta explained, "You forget, Frieza. We have no limits, and we're far from using our full power. Besides, you've all out of transformations anyway. You have no forms. This is your final one." "Yeah," exclaimed Goku. "You're all out of transformations, and we used to have far more power to use up." Frieza then holds up one finger, confusing the Saiyans. "Once more," exclaimed Frieza, "I can transform once more beyond my final form." "What?" exclaimed both the Saiyans. "That's impossible!" But it doesn't matter. The Emperor simply powered up, screaming, and he was then engulfed in a dark aura, a mask falling upon his face, and his body being engulfed in black and purple. He then exclaimed with a sinister smile on his face to his enemies, well, monkeys, what do you think of this form? Is it not beautiful? If I was to adopt a name that was fitting for your primitive minds, I would call it Black Frieza. Now, I already reconvene my horror show," he said, and then charged towards his enemies, pulling them to the ground, beating them within an inch of their lives, and there was not an inch of mercy coursing through the Emperor's mind. He was torturing them to an inch of their lives, and the Saiyans had no response to this. They were confused how Frieza got this strong in such a little amount of time. They didn't understand it, but they weren't going to have a fight, and Goku pushed himself to kayak times 20, but the Emperor was just toying with them. "Well done, monkeys," he said, "but this is the end of the line." He then raised himself to the sky and fired a massive death ball towards the ground. "This is the end for you, Saiyans! Say goodbye to your pathetic planet, and this shall be the end of your pathetic Saiyan race." Goku and Vegeta powered back with a Kamehameha and Final Flash respectively, pushing the blast back as much as they could, but Frieza simply poured more power into the blast, and it engulfed the Saiyans. Everyone thought they were gone. They were worried that this was the end now, the end of their planet, the end of their lives, but suddenly, Goku and Vegeta then fall out of the blast. Goku, his hair had simply turned back to black, but his eyes had turned silvery grey, and he had a new aura. Whereas Vegeta, the aura's blue had darkened, his muscles were bulged up, and he was even stronger than before. What is this?" "It seems that you pushed us beyond our limits, Frieza." We simply smiled, noticing that Goku had finally reached Ultra Instinct, even if it was an incomplete form, and Beerus thought the prince was a genius, learning how to push the God of Destruction powers that he had learned from him. Briefly, in blue, he could tell that Vegeta hadn't figured out how to use this destroy energy just yet. Was simply using a evolved version of blue, but he was sure that the prince would figure it out at some point. "You pushed us beyond our limits, Frieza, and this shall finally be your undoing. Say goodbye to your pathetic life, and you'll be going back to hell." Frieza then tried to fight both Goku and Vegeta, but Goku simply evaded every single one of his moves and fired back with even more devastating ones, whereas Vegeta was pushing Frieza to the limit, blasting and punching him with an inch of his life. He couldn't handle it, and this was when Frieza was forced onto the defensive. "No, this is impossible. I should be the one winning here, not you. Was 10 years of training not enough?" he exclaimed, firing death beams. "What?" exclaimed Goku and Vegeta. 10 years? They didn't realize he had trained for 10 years. He must have used the time chamber, they thought. They didn't know there were others out in space, but this didn't matter to them. They simply kept fighting him until the Emperor had powered down, back to his final form. "No, it can't be. I'm supposed to be the Emperor of the universe. I'm supposed to be the one who wins here. Give it up, Frieza. It's time for him to die." Vegeta pointed his hand out towards Frieza, and Goku powered up Kamehameha. Vegeta simply cried out, "Hakai!" The energy of destruction reached him before the Kamehameha. The Kamehameha simply blasted out into space, and Frieza could suddenly feel his body being engulfed in that fiery heat that he recognized as Beerus's destroyer energy. It seemed that the prince had been trained by the god Destruction briefly and had learned his powers. Frieza tried to push the destroyer energy away from his body, but he simply couldn't do it in this weakened state, and he felt himself being engulfed in it. He felt himself being stripped away from existence. He was being destroyed. He simply cried out, "No! No! Curse you, you filthy nunkies!" And a few minutes later, he simply disappeared, being erased from all existence. The Saiyans then powered down, knowing that they could no longer sense Frieza's energy anywhere. "Phew, that was a tough battle," said Goku. "I thought we were surely gone as Vegeta." "Ha, you forget, Kakarot, that we have no limits to Saiyans," he said, and simply powering down. They were both exhausted, but sensory beings were available to them, and they recuperated their strength. Now, I'm afraid this is where our story ends, simply for the fact that our Emperor that the story was focused around is no longer in existence. So, the rest of Super simply carry on after this. Hope you enjoyed this series, and this has been the end of What If Frieza Had Used the Rune of Spirit in Time in Resurrection F.